The West Memphis 3, a miscarriage of justice. In the sleepy town of West Memphis, Arkansas, an eerie sense of unease settled over the community like a thick fog. The year was 1993, and the town's peace was shattered when three young boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, went missing. The discovery of their lifeless bodies in a muddy ditch sent shockwaves through the town, and the gruesome nature of their deaths sparked a frenzy of fear and suspicion. The boys had been brutally beaten, and their bodies showed signs of ritualistic mutilation. Whispers of rituals and dark forces began to circulate, turning the town's collective grief into a witch hunt. The West Memphis 3, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miscarriage Jr., would soon find themselves at the center of this storm. Damian Eccles, with his long black hair and affinity for heavy metal music, became the prime suspect almost immediately. His appearance and interests made him an easy target in a conservative town searching for answers. Jason Baldwin, a close friend of Damian, and Jesse Miscarriage Jr., an acquaintance, were also implicated. The police, under immense pressure to solve the case, latched onto these three teenagers with little evidence to support their guilt. "Damian, why do you think they're targeting us?" Jason asked, his voice tinged with fear as they sat in the back of a police car. "Because we're different," Damian replied, his eyes reflecting a mix of anger and resignation. "They want someone to blame, and we fit their idea of a monster." The investigation was riddled with inconsistencies and questionable tactics. Jesse Miscarriage, with an IQ of 72, was subjected to a grueling 12-hour interrogation without a lawyer or his parents present. Exhausted and confused, he eventually confessed to the murders, implicating Damian and Jason in the process. However, his confession was riddled with inaccuracies and contradictions, and he recanted almost immediately. Despite the flimsy evidence, the prosecution built its case around Jesse's coerced confession, the boys' supposed interest in the occult, and the testimony of dubious witnesses. The trial was a media circus, with the prosecution painting a picture of the three teenagers as evil incarnate. In the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Damian, dressed in a stark white shirt, sat impassively as the prosecution spewed their narrative of satanic panic. "These boys are not like us," the prosecutor thundered, pointing a finger at the defendants. "They worship darkness and death. They are capable of unspeakable horrors." Damian's defense attorney, Val Price, stood up to counter the accusations. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the only thing these boys are guilty of is being different. There is no concrete evidence linking them to this crime." Despite the defense's efforts, the jury was swayed by the sensationalism and fear-mongering. Jesse Miscarriage was sentenced to life plus 40 years in prison. Jason Baldwin received life without parole. Damian Eccles, seen as the ringleader, was sentenced to death. Years passed, and the case of the West Memphis 3 faded from the headlines. However, a dedicated group of supporters and activists, including celebrities and legal experts, refused to let the case be forgotten. New evidence emerged, pointing to the boys' innocence. DNA testing, which was not available at the time of the original trial, revealed no traces of the three teenagers at the crime scene. Moreover, several key witnesses recanted their testimonies, admitting they had been coerced or manipulated by the police. In 2011, after 18 years of wrongful imprisonment, Damian, Jason, and Jesse were offered an Alford plea, a legal maneuver allowing them to maintain their innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict them. With no other viable options and the prospect of freedom in sight, they accepted. As they stepped out of the prison gates, the sun blinding them momentarily, a sense of bittersweet relief washed over them. "We're free, but we're not truly exonerated," Jason said quietly, his voice laced with pain. "We will be," Damian replied with determination. "We'll keep fighting until the truth is known." The horror of their wrongful conviction and the years stolen from them cast a long shadow, But the West Memphis Three were no longer willing to live in darkness. Their story, a chilling reminder of the dangers of hysteria and prejudice, continued to inspire a relentless pursuit of justice. The real horror, they knew, lay not in the accusations of rituals, but in the flawed system that had nearly destroyed their lives. As they walked into an uncertain future, they carried with them the hope that one day their names would be cleared and the true perpetrators of the heinous crime would be brought to justice. The unsolved case of Maura Murray. The winter of 2004 was particularly harsh in New England. The biting cold wrapped its icy tendrils around the small towns of New Hampshire, casting a pall over the region. It was during one such frigid night, on February 9th, that 21-year-old Maura Murray, a nursing student from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, vanished without a trace. Maura's disappearance has since become one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in recent American history. It all began, innocuously enough, with a series of seemingly unrelated events that, when pieced together, created a tapestry of suspense and dread. On the morning of her disappearance, Maura emailed her professors and employer, explaining that she would be absent for a week due to a family emergency. However, no such emergency existed. Instead, Maura packed her belongings, withdrew $280 from an ATM, and bought a variety of alcohol, including Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Franzia wine. That evening, Maura set out on a drive north into the rugged terrain of New Hampshire. Her destination remains unknown. As the darkness fell, she wound her way through the desolate snow-covered roads, her car slipping occasionally on the icy patches. Around 7:30 p.m., she lost control of her car on Route 112 near Woodsville, crashing into a snowbank. A nearby resident, Butch Atwood, a school bus driver, noticed the accident and approached Maura. "Do you need help?" Butch asked, his breath visible in the cold night air. "No, I've already called AAA," Maura responded, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying a hint of panic. Butch knew something was off. He later recalled that Maura's car had no visible damage and that there were no cell phone signals in the area. Nevertheless, he respected her wishes and drove off to call the police from his house, located just a short distance away. When the police arrived less than 10 minutes later, Maura was gone. Her car was locked, and inside, they found her belongings, her clothes, toiletries, and a book titled Not Without Peril, about mountain rescues in the White Mountains, where she had now disappeared. The chilling realization set in. Maura had vanished into the night, leaving behind only questions and a growing sense of unease. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no sign of Maura. The search parties combed through the dense woods and frozen rivers, finding nothing but cold silence. The only clue was a rag found in her tailpipe, suggesting she might have been trying to avoid detection or had been tampered with. Rumors and theories swirled like the winter snow. Some believed Maura had staged her disappearance, seeking a new life far from the pressures of academia and her troubled personal life. Others speculated she had fallen victim to foul play, perhaps abducted by a stranger or someone she knew. As the first anniversary of her disappearance approached, Maura's family received a haunting letter. The envelope was postmarked from a small town in Vermont, just across the border from where Maura had crashed. Inside was a single piece of paper, upon which was written, "Stop looking for her. She's safe now." The letter only deepened the mystery. The handwriting was unrecognizable, and forensic analysis yielded no fingerprints or DNA. The eerie message suggested that Maura was alive, but it offered no comfort, only more questions. Who had written it, and why? Years passed, and the case grew colder. The once bustling forums and discussion boards dedicated to Maura's disappearance quieted, though a dedicated few continued to search for answers. It was in the fall of 2013 nearly a decade after Maura's disappearance, that a new lead emerged. A hiker, exploring the abandoned and overgrown trails of the White Mountains, stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin deep in the forest. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, but one item stood out: a faded, torn photograph of a young woman with striking resemblance to Maura Murray. The hiker, unnerved by the discovery, took the photograph to the local authorities. The image was analyzed, and while the age progression matched what Maura might look like after 10 years, it offered no definitive proof. The cabin yielded no other clues, only a sense of dread and a haunting question. Had Maura been here? The discovery reignited public interest in the case. New search efforts were organized, focusing on the remote and rugged terrain around the cabin. As investigators combed through the dense forest, the sense of suspense grew. The woods, with their dark, towering trees and shadowy underbrush, seemed to hold their secrets tightly. One evening, as the search party was preparing to pack up for the day, a chilling scream echoed through the trees. The group froze, their flashlights cutting through the encroaching darkness. "Did you hear that?" one of the searchers whispered, his voice trembling. "It came from over there," another replied, pointing towards a dense thicket. The team cautiously approached the source of the sound, their hearts pounding. As they pushed through the underbrush, they found a small clearing. In the center, partially buried in the snow, was a tattered piece of fabric. It was the same material as the jacket Maura had been wearing on the night she disappeared. The discovery brought a renewed sense of urgency to the search. For the first time in years, it felt like they were close to uncovering the truth. The horror of not knowing what had happened to Maura was matched only by the fear of what they might find. As the sun set and the forest grew darker, the searchers pressed on, driven by a mixture of hope and dread. Somewhere in the vast, frozen wilderness lay the answers to a mystery that had haunted them for a decade. The unsolved case of Maura Murray remained a chilling enigma, a haunting reminder of how easily someone can vanish, leaving behind only whispers and shadows. The Long Island serial killer. On a cold December morning in 2010, Shannon Gilbert's frantic 911 call echoed through the early dawn. She screamed for help, her words garbled with fear and desperation. "They're trying to kill me," she cried, her voice cracking as she ran through the dark streets of Oak Beach, a small community on the south shore of Long Island. Minutes later, she vanished into the night, leaving behind a mystery that would unravel the hidden horrors lurking beneath the tranquil facade of the island. The search for Shannon led investigators to a chilling discovery on the desolate stretch of Gilgo Beach. On December 11, 2010, Suffolk County Police found the first set of skeletal remains wrapped in burlap. Over the next few months, the bodies of 10 victims would be unearthed, their grisly presence scattered along the brush-covered dunes. Each victim, predominantly young women involved in prostitution, had vanished without a trace, their lives brutally extinguished by a phantom now known as the Long Island serial killer. Detective Robert McKenna, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving cold cases, was assigned to the daunting task of unraveling this macabre puzzle. As he stood at the edge of the crime scene, the wind whipping around him, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence of the beach, once serene, now seemed oppressive, heavy with the unspoken secrets it held. "These girls didn't just vanish into thin air," McKenna muttered to his partner, Detective Jane Collins. "Someone knows this place well, uses it as their personal graveyard." Collins nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We're dealing with a predator, someone who blends into the background. Could be anyone. Our suspect could be the guy serving coffee or the man next door." The investigation stretched into months, each lead bringing more questions than answers. The victims' families, haunted by the loss and the gruesome details of the deaths, demanded justice. Among them was Maura Gilbert, Shannon's mother, who tirelessly pressed the authorities to dig deeper. "They dismissed Shannon as just another runaway," Mari said during a press conference, her voice resolute. "But my daughter was more than that. She was a human being, and she deserves justice." McKenna and Collins combed through the victim's last known activities, piecing together a pattern that pointed to a meticulous and calculating killer. The victims had all advertised their services on Craigslist or Backpage, meeting their fate after rendezvousing with their killer in secluded areas. The internet, a place of connection and opportunity, had become a hunting ground for a remorseless predator. In the summer of 2011, a new lead emerged. A retired NYPD detective, Joseph Brewer, claimed he had last seen Shannon alive at his Oak Beach home. He described how she had fled into the night, terrified and incoherent. Brewer was quickly cleared of any wrongdoing, but his account added a layer of intrigue to the investigation. That night, she was acting strange, paranoid, Brewer recounted. She kept saying someone was after her, but no one was there. "Do you think she knew her killer?" Collins asked, leaning forward, her eyes fixed on Brewer. "I don't know," he replied, shaking his head. "But she was definitely scared of something or someone." The case took a darker turn in 2012 when the body of Shannon Gilbert was finally discovered in a marsh near Oak Beach, a chilling confirmation of her tragic fate. The coroner ruled her death as accidental drowning, a conclusion that sparked outrage and disbelief among her family and supporters. Mari Gilbert, convinced that Shannon had been murdered, continued to fight for the case to be reopened. "We won't stop until we get answers," Mari declared, her determination unwavering despite the toll the search had taken on her. Shannon's voice will not be silenced. As the years passed, the investigation into the Long Island serial killer stagnated. Leads grew cold, and the public's interest waned, but McKenna and Collins refused to give up. The shadow of the killer loomed large, a constant reminder of the darkness that could reside within the most ordinary of places. In 2016, a breakthrough came in the form of new forensic technology. DNA evidence collected from the crime scenes was re-examined, yielding a profile that could finally identify the elusive murderer. However, the killer remained one step ahead, his identity still shrouded in mystery. One stormy night, as McKenna sat in his office, he received a call that sent chills down his spine. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost inhuman. "You think you're close, detective," the voice hissed, "but you'll never find me. I am the shadow, and I am always watching." The line went dead, leaving McKenna in a cold sweat. He glanced out the window, the rain lashing against the glass, and for a moment, he thought he saw a figure standing in the darkness. But when he blinked, it was gone. The Long Island serial killer remains at large, a spectral presence haunting the beaches and back roads of Suffolk County. The case is a stark reminder of the monsters that can hide in plain sight, of the evil that can lurk beneath the surface of the most idyllic places. And as long as the killer remains free, the shadows over Long Island will never truly lift.